direction. All of a sudden, the man held up the red jewel to the sky and gazed at it intently, pondering the truth behind the human soul. With a sudden shift in the scene, a young girl is seen heading somewhere. After searching, she finds her destination, the on-screen film club. Therefore, she opens the door and finds 3 people standing there. Currently, one person is betting against 2 others, where he manages to correctly guess the opponent's card and win the bet. As such, after paying up, the 2 leave and the victor returns to sleep. At that moment, a girl with pink hair chimes in and asks if the guy is Seidu Yakumo. She claims to have heard about him from her senior and asks if Seidu really possesses psychic powers. Although this man claims to be Seidu, he asks who the girl is. As such, the girl introduced herself as Ozawa Haruka and asked Seidu to keep everything she was saying a secret. With this, she begins her story about how, 2 weeks ago, she and her seniors were celebrating a farewell. There, someone suggested doing a test of courage at the old building, which is off limits to the students. As the 4 of them entered, they soon noticed something weird. Their shadows were moving on their own and had a monstrous appearance. 10 days after this incident, suddenly the students started to become possessed. The first person was Miki, who is still in the hospital. Next was Kazuhiko, who jumped off a building and died. Upon hearing this, Seidu asked Haruka if she had witnessed Kazuhiko's death. He announced that if she had not, they could not be sure of the involvement of ghosts. Nevertheless, Haruka wants Seidu to save Miki. He agrees to help, and only for the cheap price of 25,000 yen. It's quite a bargain if you ask me. Haruka is somewhat reluctant to pay in advance when suddenly she notices that Seidu was cheating earlier by using a mirror. Upon seeing this, she decides to leave and heads back. However, Yakumo, impressed by her wit, decides to help her without taking the advance. However, Haruka thinks he is a fraud, but Seidu claims that he can see ghosts. Not only that, but he can also communicate with them. Although he can communicate with them, he is still unable to exorcise the ghosts. However, he can talk some sense into them. Hearing this, Haruka is not convinced. However, he begins announcing about Haruka's late twin sister, who passed away in a car accident. Hearing him speak of her, Haruka asks him to stop and believes his words. And so, they both head to Miki's hospital, where she is seen to be extremely weak. Haruka explains that she is getting weaker and the doctors do not have a diagnosis. But Seidu can see something the doctors cannot, the souls of the dead. On Miki's body, he sees the soul of 4 people and he communicates with them. After the visit, he tells Haruka that Miki has been poisoned by the soul of 4 murder victims. Not only that, the soul of the dead usually remains at the site of the murder or the place where the bodies were dumped. Consequently, there must have been a crime committed in the old building. Later that night, Haruka suddenly gets a call and rushes to the train station. There, she learns that her friend, Yuichi, has committed suicide. There, she meets with a professor who saw the incident and discusses it with him. The professor explains that the site was similar to Miki's. Not only that, he claims Yuichi told him about the 4 of them sneaking into the old building, expressing all the creepy rumors surrounding that place. According to him, this must be the work of a ghost, but the police will obviously not believe this. However, Seidu is also standing behind her, gearing everything, and gets suspicious. Later, as Haruka and he departs, Seidu decides to walk her back home. But Seidu calls her an idiot, claiming that her life is now in danger as well. He explains that the one after them is a human and as such, she needs to stay close to him for her safety. The following morning, they both head to the old building, where Seidu tries to bribe the janitor to let them enter. Of course, he has no authority over this matter and tells them to get Takeoka's approval, the teacher they met yesterday who also happens to be the old building's overseer. Funny how that happens. Not only that, but on the way back, Yakumo notices some misplaced dirt, tracking its path to find a bunch of stuff buried in the ground. This solidifies his theory. Takeoka is the one who murdered those women. Sitting at the cafe, they watch over Takeoka's every move, where Seidu explains his theory to Haruka. However, all this is a theory and without evidence, they can do nothing. Fate apparently, evidence is easy to get as Seidu grabs a cup from the trash from which Takeoka drank. Later that day, he calls out and meets with Godu, a policeman. He hands Godu a bag, who then departs. With this, Haruka and Seidu return to the clubroom, where Seidu is still guarding her. Nevertheless, Haruka has to answer the call to nature and goes to the restroom. But as she returns, she sees an ominous figure. On the other hand, Godu meets with a rather creepy old doctor, who confirms that the fingerprints on Takeoka's cup are the same as the ones on the buried passion. In action, even the owners, who were reported missing, have their prints on them. This proves Seidu's theory and Godu calls to inform him, but he is nowhere to be seen. He is seen to be in the women's restroom, where he finds Haruka's purse on the ground. With the help of some spirits who guide him, he makes his way to the old building. Inside, Haruka is restrained by Takeoka, who wants to murder her. But upon hearing Seidu's arrival, he hides himself and ambushes him when he frees Haruka. But his strike does not damage and only knocks out his contacts, revealing his left eye. Glowing red, he claims he can see the souls of the deceased through this eye. Moreover, he laments that the souls of the victims are still suffering and wandering closer to Takeoka, who is terrified after seeing Seidu's eye and running away. At the exit, he sets the building ablaze. However, the police arrive soon after and arrest him. Not only that, he calls for the fire brigade to help the stranded Haruka and Sato, who are now trapped on the roof with no choice but to wait for help. There, they talk and Haruka reveals she entered the old building, thinking that maybe her sister's ghost was there. As per rumors, piano music was heard several times from this building, leading her to believe that it was the doing of her sister. Always adored by everyone, one day, Haruka decides to be a bit mean to her sister and while playing, throws the ball towards her but too hard. As the ball went out onto the road, her sister went to retrieve it. That's when a truck suddenly appeared and ran over her. Due to this, Haruka blames herself for her sister's demise, believing that her sister might have harbored resentment towards her. But Seidu corrects her. He claims that she has no grudges towards Haruka, stating that she was the one who told him she was in danger. Upon hearing this, Haruka expresses her wish to see her once again. Consequently, Seidu moves closer to her, grabs her by the face, and tells her to close her eyes. With this, Haruka is transported to a special place where she is able to reunite with her sister and embrace her once again. Although in tears, she is able to say her goodbyes to her sister and returns to the present, where she expresses her gratitude to Seidu. On the other hand, a blonde couple is seen with a man. This man is fighting after seeing something in the river, and the blonde man claims that this is the poor ghost that has been stuck at the bottom of the river. Nevertheless, this blonde man states that this soul can be moved with the sacred ink. The ghost's father will obey his command. Of course, the father agrees to these terms, and everything comes full circle as the blonde man answers Yakumo's question from the beginning of the episode. The truth of the human soul is darkness. Meanwhile, after some time passes, two workers are seen working in the late hours of the night in a shrine. They are setting up a stage for something and are forced to work so late because the chairman, an old man named Yuri, is arriving to check the progress first thing in the morning. There, one of the workers tells the other about the rumors he has heard, rumors about this place being haunted. All of a sudden, they start hearing a child's laughter, and the next thing you know, the ghost and the props begin to shake and break while an ominous black statue is shown. On the other hand, the next morning, Haruka goes to meet with Seidu to visit Miki at the hospital. There, she sees Seidu napping and moves closer to him. But he wakes up, seeing her face and recalling the night at the burning building. As he gets up, he states that it is bad luck seeing Haruka's face first thing in the morning. Regardless, he begins changing, prompting Haruka to ask if he really lives here. Seidu explains that although he does have a house, he rarely goes there and spends his time here. Not only that, but he has also lied to the school and gotten his hands on this room under the non-existing on-screen film club. Anyway, they both head to the hospital, where Seidu communicates with the spirits possessing Miki and tells them about Takeoka's arrest. As a result, the spirit moves on, immediately improving Miki's condition. Soon, she is able to open her eyes and calls out Haruka's name. And so, the visitors leave and outside. Haruka expresses her surprise at how persuading the ghosts worked. Seidu explains that ghosts were originally human and, as per his belief, are clusters of emotions left behind by the dead. As such, he refuses to use methods such as killing or sealing them. As they both ride the bus back, Haruka tells him to wait for the 25,000 yen as she has just started a part-time job. Bert Yakumo tells her not to worry, as he has already gotten his pay from Miki's father after telling him he could help as a psychic who specializes in exorcism. There, Haruka starts getting more familiar with him, but he is uninterested. Soon, the Meisei University's bus stops arrives and he takes his leave, stating that the contract between him and Haruka has now come to an end. Regardless, later on, Haruka heads to her job, which she has already left but is still working at until a replacement is found. There, a wheelchaired old man arrives as a customer and Haruka acts as her waiter. There, she overhears his phone call where he mentions the fox's curse. This leads to Kunamatsu, the old man's attendant, to explain that there is a Tamatsuka fox shrine in this city. This old man, who is Chairman Eri, wants to erect a new building there, but the development has been running into issues, apparently because of Fox's curse. That night, Haruka decides to visit the shrine, where she encounters a human figure wearing a fox mask. Saying this, she is terrified and